Hi everybody, this is Carissa with Inky Fairy Designs, and I am back today with a fun collaboration between Seth Apter, StencilGirl, and Wow Embossing Powders. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, be sure to check out the other links over at my blog so you can check out everybody who's participating today. And let's jump right into it. You saw in the beginning, I am going to be making 2 journal pages for you today using the Seth Apter and StencilGirl products, as well as the Seth Apter and Wow embossing powder products. So let's go ahead and I'll tell you what I'm doing. But first, I am just adding a little bit of black ink through this stencil onto a journal page. Now, this is a handmade journal that I created prior to this project. It is one that I just created a whole bunch of backgrounds and then I bound them together using a Dina Wakley technique, and it's really cool, really quick and easy if you're into like the handmade journal idea and you want to make your own. That's a pretty cool thing to do, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I just wanted to tell you what I was working on. So that is what I'm working on. That's why I already have kind of like a background made, which is pretty cool when you're doing mixed media and you have pre-made backgrounds that you can just finish and make quick art journal pages. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using all of these products today to add those finishing details to both of these journal pages, and I really love the way they turned out. So now I'm using some Distress Collage media. This is like a crackle media. That's not the name of it, but it does have that crackle kind of texture when it dries, and I'm placing it using that same stencil that I added the black ink to the background, and now I'm just kind of using bits and pieces of it to add this distress collage. And here I am using some of the Seth Apter Wow embossing powders. Now I use 2 of the trios. One of them is like the metals. This is the metals trio, and then in the next journal page I will be using a different Seth Apter trios. They're both amazing and some of my favorite colors. So this is like a copper color, and I thought it went really well with the colors in the background. And when you're using distress like media or any kind of like texture medium to emboss with, you want to allow that medium to dry slightly, but not all the way. And unfortunately, when I did this, I stepped away for longer than I intended to, and it dried much faster than I thought. And so it didn't emboss quite the way I wanted to, but this technique does work. And so I got enough of it on there that it did work. It stopped rubbing away. That's what I was checking. And but yeah, that technique, it's great, but just don't let your medium dry too quick like I did, and it'll work beautifully. So now I'm pulling out the Seth Apter Mixed Media Brush by Wow. This is one of my favorite products that I received this year, and I just love it. I love it for adding texture to my journal pages and backgrounds. You can apply it through a stencil like I'm showing you here. You want to apply very thin layers. That's what I learned when I was doing this, but it does apply through stencils really great with the brush, but just make sure you kind of wipe away most of the medium before you come to apply it through the stencil, and you'll be great. But it's great. I love just applying it with the brush onto my background and adding all kinds of brush strokes and marks and all that kind of fun stuff into my journal pages. But yeah, the stencil, I kind of love it. I like it because it has all of these great words, and it's really funky. Seth Apter is really known for his grunge and all of that good stuff. And so it's really cool. I love all of his products that I was able to use in the video today. All right, so now I'm going in and I am adding a bit of dimension to the edges of this journal page, just using that same ink that I used in the beginning. And so I'm just kind of sponging that on the background. I love this because it was a really bright page, and this kind of just dirties it up a little bit and gives it a little bit more mood and depth, of course. So now I'm pulling out, this is just a fine line applicator bottle, and I have it filled with some fluid black paint, and I'm able to kind of do some sketchy writing on the background, add a little bit more texture and dimension. And now I'm going to, I believe, splatter with some of this Dina Wakley white spray. I forget the name of it. I'm going to try and list all of the supplies in the description box below. So look for that if you're interested. If you see something interesting that I'm using today, go ahead and look down there. Hopefully you can find it. If not, leave me a comment, ask me. I will respond, and I will find out and figure it out and give you that answer. So the last thing that I'm going to do is add some words to my page. And I liked the words in the stencil where it said, you know, I kind of highlighted the words fear and never again. So like never fear again. And then I felt like that was a life lesson. So I put that lesson 175 on there. And then the power of thinking, because it is very true how our power of thinking can affect us, and we can change the way that our thoughts are. So that's kind of what this journal page is all about here. So I'm just going to add a few details, doodles around the page, frame it out, and highlight those stickers, and that page is done. So here's a little bit of close-up. You can see all of that texture in the background from the embossing powder, and I just love it. If you've never used embossing powders in your mixed media or your art journaling, please give it a try. It's something new that I have been trying this year, and I really love the look of it, and it just adds so much dimension to your pages, and not to mention that beautiful shimmery shine. Okay, so here's my second page. I'm doing a little bit of a different technique. So I'm using that same stencil, yes, and I am pressing the Wow Embossing ink through the stencil onto my journal page. Now you have to press really, really hard. Make sure your pad is nice and juicy, and this will work great, especially since the background that I am working on has quite a bit of texture on it because it's that those like art boards. So then I sprinkled some of my other favorite Seth Apter trio onto it, and you can see how great that stenciled. And you know, that I didn't use like you know, like a embossing powder or anything like that on my journal page, because if there's random stray embossing powder on an art journal background, that's just an extra bonus. So I love the way that looks, and it was actually such a great color to add to the background that I already had there. So now I'm pulling out this other StencilGirl stencil, and I love these like marks and kind of wonky lines from this one. So I pulled out some blushing paint to add a bit of contrast to this page. Since it had a lot of very cool tones to it in the beginning, and then I added the blue embossing powder, I thought adding a pop of this coral would really bring it out and make it pop, and it did, and I really do like it. So now I'm pulling out this other, it's like a ton of different marks on one large like 9 by 12 stencil. It's amazing. So I added a few of those, few areas of those through the stencil, the same stencil. And now I'm picking out a few different words from that same stencil by Seth Apter, and so this one I picked out begin again. So you can always begin again. I love these because I love that you can use them all at once, or you can pick and choose some of the different words that are in the stencil for whatever you're kind of working through or putting onto your page. So I really like that. So now I'm taking that paint, and I got actually, this page is actually slightly smaller than some of the other pages in the journal, so I had to add some of that paint to the page behind it because I got sloppy. And I'm just kind of doing the same technique that I did in the previous page, where I'm adding that border, deepening those edges, and just adding a lot of depth and dimension to the page. I'm still working on the background here. I'm just kind of adding lots of different things. So here I put some of that mixed media, from that brush applicator. I just actually poured some of it onto my mat, and then I picked it up with a, like an old card, and added different lines and texture that way. And then I also, you saw, I just picked it up with my fingers and kind of finger painted it on the edges. And so this is going to add a lot of texture when I add the embossing powder. So I'm sprinkling that on. This is another color from that trio. I can't think of this trio name off the top of my head, but it is one that has like lots of blues. It has that teal, and then it has like silvery blacks in it. It's a really, really fun trio, and one of my favorites. So you can see this is like a blue. So you can see it's lightening up a little bit, and you can see the different shades in there. Has a lot of glitter, and then it also has a lot of just like white and black embossing powders in there, so you get a lot of texture. And I thought that looked great over the night paint. Okay, so now I lost a lot of my teal, so I'm going to go ahead and just go back over the edges with my turquoise paint, and I'm just kind of gently adding that around the edges, bringing it in towards the middle, so it's kind of creating, so it's not just kind of on the edges. You see it all around the page. And then I'm going to take the stencil, I believe, and I'm going to add some ocean, adding a little bit more paint. But I think after I add this paint, I'm going to take one of the stencils and kind of wipe up some of that paint. So you feel like I'm covering up a lot of it, and I am, but we're going to remove some of that paint while it's still wet. So I will get the stencil, and then I'm just going to place it over top. I'm taking a damp baby wipe, and then I'm removing some of that paint from the page, and you can see how you can see the stuff that's underneath now. That's a really cool technique if you want to add some more depth to your page. So now I'm going to bring that night back in, because I pretty much covered it up with all of the layers that I just added, and so I'm bringing that night just around the very edges, and just a few swipes in the middle. Okay, so I added so much color, I feel like I need to brighten it up a little bit, and the way that I do that is super easy. I'll just pull out a stencil and add some white stenciling to my page in a few spots. So if you overwork your page, like I tend to do sometimes with a lot of color and a lot of paint, just bring in some white through your stencil. Now I had a lot of that white still left on my glass mat, so I wet it down, and now I'm adding a few white splatters to it, and I really like that. So if you don't have the Dina Wakley media spray, you can just white or damp or wet some white paint and get the same look. All right, so now I'm adding my stickers to my page that say, "For this moment, the light of hope that I can see." And I just felt in a very positive mood with this page. The colors, I love cool colors, so they always tend to make me feel very positive and happy. And when I use warm colors, like in the other page, I tend to feel very moody and maybe more reflective. And so that's, you can really see like the difference between these two pages just because of the difference in how I feel using those two different kind of color combinations. But I love both the pages. Here you can see all of the beautiful texture in the background from that embossing powder. Like I said, if you haven't used embossing powder in your art journal pages, give it a shot. It's definitely been new to me this year, and I really love the way that it looks. So here are some close-ups of each of the pages. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me to create these two pages. I hope you are enjoying the Stencil Girl and Seth Apter Wow embossing powder hop. There is an awesome giveaway, so check out the details over on my blog to see how you can enter to win some great products. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.